Mute those 2 minutes. I think we're live. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Love Your Business TV, and welcome to this special edition of Survive and Thrive with myself, Adrian Peck. I've got Melanie Knight on the line as well here or on the show, and also Richard Jackson, who I'll introduce you to in a minute. If I just share this screen. For the wonders of technology. Let's remove these two for a moment. So yes, welcome to everybody. We're now live on Facebook and on YouTube. You can now download the podcast on Spotify and soon to be on Apple as well, iTunes as well. So really great to see everybody. So this week we're going to do more stuff around this horrendous virus that's going around, and really kind of updating you on what you can do and how you can best equip yourselves for that. I've got a couple of guests with me as well. We've got Richard Jackson, MBE, and also Melanie Knight. They're going to join me. I'll introduce them in a second. If you want to contact us at all, just click on the you can use the comment bars on either on LinkedIn or on YouTube. Sorry, not LinkedIn, on Facebook or on YouTube, and they will come up on that. We can respond to any questions you might have as we go through it. We do have some people that have sent in already some stuff as well, which we'll share with you as we go through. So if you've got any questions at all, just push them through, and we'll kind of answer them towards the end if you don't mind. If you also need to contact me, I'm adrian.peck@peckuk.com is my main email address as well. So what we'll do now is I'll just introduce Melanie and Richard into this as well. First of all, I'm going to bring just Melanie in, hopefully with this wonderful technology. So hello, Melanie. You're on it. Hold on. No. Add to screen. You're there. So you want to introduce yourself, Melanie? Oh, no, you're muted.
Hello. Hi. I think you can hear me now.
We can indeed. So do you want to just introduce yourself, Melanie, for a second?
Okay, so I'm Melanie Knight. My business is Blue Tree HR Solutions, and I offer support to employers with any sort of employee management problem. But obviously, there's a lot of employee management problems going on at the moment. So hopefully I can help your viewers answer some difficult questions. Excellent.
Thank you, Melanie. And then let's bring in, so I've got to remove her and bring Richard in as well, and here's Richard Jackson. So Richard, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Richard Jackson. I founded and co-created The Winning Edge 35 years ago. We've spent 35 years helping people to think differently, which might sound a bit patronizing, but I think we can all do some help with that. We worked 35 countries around the world, and to run a course based on motivation and attitude in Norfolk when we started was quite something. But the reach is now a long way, and we just love to help you in a few minutes today if we can, to maybe think differently about the situation we're in.
Excellent, brilliant. So let's crack on with today. Got to get back there. So what we're going to cover this afternoon is really kind of dive into what I call Survive and Thrive, and I'll come on to why I've called that as well. We'll look at what the current state is in terms of what the situation we're in at the moment, and then the impact that's going to have on business. And then I want to take you through some actions that you can take, and that's where I'm going to bring in Melanie and Richard into the fray as well to give you some help and advice. And then I talk to you about next steps, and we're going to touch on the Survive and Thrive groups that we're going to set up, and some one-to-one programs as well to help people. So I want to just touch on, first of all, kind of really a little bit around Survive and Thrive, and kind of before I start, I want to touch on really why I'm doing this, and kind of what my vision is. My vision has always been to enable ambitious entrepreneurs to enjoy their journey, live their dream, and leave them feeling inspired and empowered to grow sustainable, successful businesses that make a meaningful impact on local communities. And that's my kind of big vision of what I want to achieve. My purpose behind that, my bigger purpose, is to use our knowledge and influence to educate, inspire, and motivate ordinary people to achieve extraordinary results. We believe that with the right mindset, motivation, and plan, you can achieve anything that you want. And that's kind of really important. So I've got my vision, my purpose, and also my values. My values is to be ambitious, have fun, and live your dream. Now, the reason I kind of brought that up, really, and it's not really my, forget me, it's not about me being self-indulgent. It's actually about this is the time where you've really got yourself get in touch with your own vision, values, and your vision, your purpose, and your values. It never at this time has it been so important for you to get in touch with those. And the challenge I've got for you is actually to start thinking about what's your why, because that's going to start coming out when we move on to a bit further into this presentation today, when we start talking about the midterm goals. Is that it's so important that you start tapping into your why, because that's going to take you through this and past it as well. So that's my big challenge to you, and we'll come back to it when we talk about the big why as well, or the midterm goals out of it. And the reason that it's so important is, and I love this quote, and I love this stuff from Charles Darwin, and I think this is so applicable to businesses. When you look at businesses, look how business evolve over years, and the ones that come and go and the ones that have failed. It's not the most intellectual of the species that survives. It's not the strongest that survives. It's the one that's most responsive to change. And again, never in our lifetime, certainly my lifetime, has that ever been more applicable, and how that's going to transform businesses going forward. And hopefully that's going to help you as well. So where are we? Sorry, we'll come back on. So the reason I brought all that up, I forget myself now, is around that challenge, but also about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship going forward is going to be the single strongest thing that's going to change the world. It's not going to be politicians. It's not going to be the world leaders. It's going to be entrepreneurs. You've already seen it with the likes of Bill Gates and people like that are building their foundations. Sir Richard Branson, those type of people now that are starting to come through, and their entrepreneurship is starting to make huge impacts into the world. And that's no different from you. What's going to come out of this kind of natural disaster in terms of the virus is how the world responds. And that very much is about how you respond and how the entrepreneurial community responds. It's you that's going to be there at the heart rebuilding it. And that's really my big message about this kind of the challenge about what's your why, and then equally about how your entrepreneurship is going to come through and change the world. And that's kind of really, really important. So where are we? What's the current state of where we are? We're going to talk about current state, impact, actions, and next state. So in terms of the current state, where are we? What I really want to do, and I've been very mindful of this, is that I don't get into any opinions or anything, deal with anything that we may kind of perceive that's going to happen to a degree. I want to keep very much focused on the here and now. If you try and get beyond that, almost, it's very easy to see some of the stuff we saw last week where people started panicking a bit, and you end up with people getting laid off work and all sorts of things that happen that really, without knowing the full facts, you shouldn't do in a way. But in terms of our current state at the moment, we know that we're on this restricted moment, that we've kind of been told now to stay at home, and that unless your travel or your reason to go out is absolutely essential, that's kind of what it is. And we know that we've got this now for at least the next 3 weeks. And certainly there's no face-to-face retail, and we've been told to kind of homework wherever possible. Businesses are still working, and certainly there's still a lot of stuff that's still business as usual going on. With the hospitality and leisure industry, obviously that's been shut down completely as of Friday, and the comment from the Prime Minister was that that's going to be reviewed in a month's time. So we know that that's going to be at least until the kind of latter part of April is that's going to hold fire now. So that's kind of the absolute facts. There is, I've put a link onto the sidebar, onto the comments here, that links through to a government document that comes straight from the government that tells you all the restricted businesses and what you can and can't do at the moment. Now, of course, with the next few days, that could very easily change, and there could be an absolute lockdown. I personally think, and I know I'm trying to keep away from opinion, but I do think that this was all part of the plan to start with. And the Boris kind of alluded to it last week, where he said that he needed to get down to lock down or to restrict movement by at least 75%. So we know that until we get that down to this 25% mark, that he won't be happy that the people in the country are stopping to move around, and obviously the social isolation type stuff. So we kind of know where that's going to. So that's what we absolutely know, and we know that kind of time frame that we know that's the minimum we've got now as well. So now let's look at kind of what's going to be the impact of that. Of course, it's quite difficult to get anything credible sources. If you try and go to newspapers and stuff at the moment, there's loads of opinion on all of this at the moment, and I really try to avoid it. The one great thing I did find was from the CBI. The CBI have, okay, it could be argued they're stating the bloody obvious, but actually, you know, it's going to hit economic activity substantially, was their kind of comments around it. Of course, this is brand new. This is really uncharted water for all of us. We've never been in peacetime. We've never seen anything like this at all. So we are learning as we go. The most likely is there's going to be a recession. But we don't know how the length and depth of that's going to be. Of course, we've seen the stock market collapse at the moment, but the stock market isn't a reflection of business. I've got one of my clients I was with last week who is having a record month. You know, they're absolutely flying, and actually March is stronger than February. That's stronger than January. So it's kind of not. There's no yardstick out there in terms of actually how deep and how long it's going to go on for. There are going to be many businesses that aren't going to survive, without a doubt. I know from I get to see a lot of companies' accounts. I get to see a lot of businesses. I know how tough it was last year for them with the whole Brexit. And the election that came around, and there's still a lot of uncertainty then. So businesses, some businesses aren't going into this particularly strong, and this could be the final straws that break the camel back. We've already seen some impact into the retail industry, not surprisingly, and whether the some of the money that's been put around for government, whether that's going to help them survive a bit longer, we're not quite sure. But as we see at the moment, the impact is we don't quite know, but we do know that it's going to have quite a great deal of unrest. We just don't know how long and how deep that's going to be. So what's the action that's going to come out of it, and the actions for you? And I want to touch on three things really. One is opportunity. The second one is short term, the here and now, what you can do. And then we're going to go on to and talk about midterm opportunity or midterm actions for you as well. So if we look about the opportunity, out of any recession, out of any kind of world events that happen, there's also great opportunity that comes from it. And it goes back to that Charles Darwin thing that says actually, it's not strongest. It's not the most intellectual. It's the one that's most adaptable to change. That's the one that's going to survive and strive the strongest. So there is an opportunity to, there's three mindsets. Let's go back. Sorry. So there is three mindsets out of it. First of all, it's very easy for everybody to panic. And we've seen this over the last few weeks where all of a sudden people are panicked, and we've seen bizarrely the impact there has been on toilet roll. So that's kind of that blind panic of running around like a headless chicken, and that's very easy to slip into that approach. The next approach is to kind of carry on with your business and try and ignore it and go, well, that doesn't going to affect me, and kind of bury your head in the sand. Or the third approach is to really tap into that entrepreneurial mindset that you have, and kind of go into that entrepreneur. What's the opportunity that's going to spin out of this other side of it? How can I look at my business differently? There are going to be winners and losers out of it, without a doubt. But everybody's in the same boat. The big companies are going to really struggle. They're going to struggle because of the complexities of the business. They're going to struggle to change that quickly out of it. But you are small businesses, you're small, you're nimble, and you can adapt and adopt different ways quite quickly. So there's an opportunity to reset, reinvent, and therefore you'll come out of this so much stronger. You just got to tap into that entrepreneur that sits inside you, rather than having blind panic and or the other option to put your head in the sand. So that's the kind of the opportunity out of it, and there is, like I say, a massive opportunity out of it. So we talk about some short-term stuff now. I'm going to bring in Melanie now to talk really about looking after staff and how you can. You may be looking at your business now about to reduce the number of staff you have. You're normally looking about laying people off. And I want Melanie now to come in and talk about how you should be handling that, how you can keep legal out of that as well. So I'm going to hand over to Mel, hopefully, and I'm going to put you full screen, Mel. Hopefully. I will put you full screen.
Yay, that's me. Can you hear me? I can't hear you, so I'm assuming you can. Okay, so the way I see it is there's three current situations for employers. The first one is that staff are able to work from home and are continuing to do so. So in this situation, the employers are required to make sure the employees have got everything they need to continue doing their job. And I would recommend that you keep in touch with them regularly. Make them feel like they are still at work, and just keep in touch, because morale is going to be low and people are going to be feeling very isolated. You could set daily targets, and another idea is to request daily reports to make sure that the work is getting done. So that's the easy situation. If staff are continuing to work from home, that's the easiest one. The second one is where employers are continuing to work. Obviously these people are really in need of your support at the moment. They'll be frightened and worried about being exposed to the virus, whatever their job they're in. Even if they're in a factory making food products, they're still going to be exposed to people where they know that family members, and the general consensus is we've all got to stay at home, and these people are being asked to come to work. So these people are going to be worried. So you need to be putting in precautionary measures to implement social distancing as much as you can, and make sure that you keep an eye on their health. You do not want them coming into work with the symptoms and then infecting the rest of your workforce. So really keep an eye on that, and think about whether you're going to pay them just SSP if they do feel sick, or whether there is, you can afford to pay them full pay on sick leave, and that way you're not encouraging them to come into work when they're sick, because people can't necessarily afford to be on SSP. And I think what's really important, and this is the same for all staff, but really show your appreciation to these people, whatever their job is. If they're key workers, if they're in the shop facing people and people who are grumpy and abusive, they're going through a lot at the moment, and I think it's really important that you show your appreciation on a regular basis. So in the third situation, which I think is a lot of people are in this situation at the moment, is where there is no or little work, or you've been in a situation where you've been told to shut up shop and close down. So in this situation, I would suggest that you consider the furlough. So I'm sure you would have heard of the government's job retention scheme, and this has been put in place to try and encourage businesses to keep their employees in the business, so that once this is all over, we can come out, you've still got your employees, and you can get back running, hopefully as normal as possible, trying to avoid redundancies. So the government are offering a grant to employers where they will get 80% of their salary whilst their staff are on a temporary layoff. So I suppose the first question is, how do you get the grant? I should have said at the start, I'm only going on information that's available today. This changes on an hourly basis, but we're still waiting for full details on this grant. But it has been said that it's available to all employees. And what will happen is there'll be an HMRC portal, and people will be able to register any staff that are on a furlough, and they will then hopefully be able to receive the 80% of the salary, up to a maximum of £2,500. Like I said, we're still waiting for more information on that. If you've already got staff that have been laid off on a temporary layoff, then this can be backdated to the 1st of March. And initially, this scheme is intended to run for 3 months. So that's the information from the government. So which employees can you put on a furlough? Theoretically, any employee. They need to be on a PAYE in order for the organisation to be able to claim their wages back. The chances of you having the mention of a furlough in the contract is really slim, as this is a sort of a new word that the government have taken from America, and not something that we've used in England before. But you may have in the contracts the right to put staff on a layoff, which is very similar. The layoff up until last week, before we had this change, which was announced on Friday, you could lay staff off if you have this clause in your contract, which means that staff are still employed, but they're not being paid. Obviously, not many people would like to be in that situation, and it's not nice for employees to put staff in that situation, especially when they know that the chances of them getting another job in the current climate are slim. So the government have introduced this, which is really helpful to employers, because they can close business, they can tell the staff there's no work, promise them this 80% of their salary, and know that at the end of it they've still got a job. So like I said, it's temporary. It's absolutely temporary. They're still employed, and there's no changes to their employment status. So if you haven't got a layoff clause in your contracts, you will have to get staff agreement to go on a furlough. But in this situation, I think most people are going to agree, because the alternative is redundancy. So every situation is different, and I understand that, and there's a whole load of different situations that we still don't know the answers to, and these could include 0-hour contracts, people on long-term sick leave, maternity, a whole load of things, which I can't answer at the moment, and I'm working on to find out answers because I've got people who need to know. So at the moment, if you've got staff and you need to close the business, then I would suggest that you write to them or talk to them if they're in premises, and tell them that this is what you're suggesting for your business. What else was I going to talk about? Okay, so sorry, Anna.
So I've got one of the questions I was asked with the survey we sent out was around severance pay. So I'm not quite sure who it was, but somebody that asked about, can they lay people off? Have they then got to pay redundancy pay? Kind of how does that work currently? Are they open to, if employers were to lay people off or make them redundant, does that, surely they should still go through the proper process in terms of redundancies?
Yeah, if you're considering redundancies, this furlough is in place to give you a chance to reconsider that. And obviously, it's a payment that you can get your staff for a period of time, which is not going to cost the business anything. So it's ideal it would be to put them on the furlough first, and then you can consider your options with redundancy. that you at the end of it, there's no promise of work, because we just don't know what's going to happen at the end of it.
Yeah. Okay.
With regards to severance pay, obviously, if they're entitled to that, and they were still made redundant, then that would be payable. At the current time, if the chances are you've got to make all your staff redundant and it's going to cost the business a lot of money, then you'll be better off putting them on the furlough for now, because at least they're going to be getting that 80% payout immediately. Because
Yeah.
well, I say immediately, they are saying the grants would be available by the end of April.
Yeah.
So
indeed. Yeah.
it's a quicker time to get the payment through.
So Simon's asked a question: if a company received the grant, do they have to pay only the 8% of salary, or should they pay the full salary?
There's nothing to say that you have to pay the 100%. That is up to you. There's no pressure on you to pay that. That is an employer's choice.
Okay, so that you can, under the furlough, then you can lay off your staff, and obviously I assume if it will be unlikely there's a clause in their contract to be able to do that.
No, but there may be a layoff clause, which is very similar.
Right. Okay, but if there isn't a layoff clause, then you have to get verbal or written agreement from them that they're happy to do that.
Yeah.
And then you have agreed then we're going to get their 80%, or you're going to top it up and pay the 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, I don't think we've got any further questions on at the moment.
I was just checking if there's any other questions that I'd thought of. The other thing I don't know yet is how they're going to calculate the 80%. And that's something that I'm still waiting for clarity on. We don't know if it's based on the last 12 weeks sort of average pay, or whether it's based on their salary from February. There's lots of different people surmising how it's going to be calculated, but at this moment in time, I don't actually know. Nobody does.
Indeed, yeah. Well, I think that's fair to say on most of this stuff at the moment. We don't really kind of know how it's going to pan out, but I think the intent's there by government. And we just hope that it's going to be carried through, really.
One of the important things to know is that if employers are on a furlough, they are not required to do any work. So you can't have someone doing shorter hours. They are expected to be out of the business during that period of time.
So there's no half measures. They're either on furlough or they're working.
Yeah, or the reduced hours. Yeah. And if you're in a situation where maybe you've got reduced amount of work, then you'd have to think about which staff to choose to furlough and which staff you choose to keep in the business, which is a tough decision to make, because everyone, I think, would prefer to be at home. Well, not everyone, but some people prefer to be at home on 80% than coming into work, in the current climate.
Yeah, indeed.
But that's a conversation you'd need to have with your employees, and hopefully you'd get volunteers.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Mel.
Okay.
So move on to get rid of the technology. Moving on to then about impact, really. And what I will share with you, I'll put together a cash flow tool for you. Hopefully, if I just get rid of myself on here, you should be able to see it in a bit of live view. So there's a link on the side to download it. I think there's, hold on a minute, I'm going to have to move it across somehow, because some of it's hidden behind my heart. So I do apologise for that. But what I've put together is there's a link on the in the comments box for you to go to it. It's a Google Sheet. You can download the Google Sheet into Excel. Just basically go File and then Download As, and you can download it as an Excel file, and it's then fully compatible. The first sheet I've got on here is the COVID kind of financial help, and I've put together a checklist for you so you can go through and look at what it is you can review financially. I would urge you that you need to look at your business quite quickly, particularly around cash flow and managing its finances. So you could go through each one and you can do a tick box of saying, yes, it's an option for you, or no, it's not. And then you can mark it complete. when you have done it, and you can update your cash flow forecast, which I'll come on to a second. There's a second document on there as well, which links to this, which hopefully you'll be able to see, which I won't go through any detail, but it's a really good schematic that was put together by a guy called Hamish. Where have I got my notes? Hamish put this together. It's really, really good and great. Easy takes you through what the options are, and each page is going to got the detail into it. Now, as we've said earlier, some of the detail still isn't known, so you're going to have to kind of bear with. But as these things unfolds, you'll be able to get into it. So the idea of this checklist is that you've got the ability to go through so some stuff that you can do yourself that you can make an immediate impact. So about reviewing your costs, look into your current, if you've got anything on finance currently, about getting refinance, payment holidays, stuff like that. Talking to your suppliers about any payments you have with them, and talk about how you can look after each other and come up with some payment plans where you've got suppliers you owe money to, and the same with your customers as well. At the end of the day, everybody's going to be in the same boat, so it's really important that you work together and you find ways of doing it. Also look at how you can refinance current assets. Is that an option for you as well if you've got any capital equipment type stuff? And then we move on to the government parts here. So these are the options you've got around the grant support, which is grant support is that's only for limited sectors in terms of leisure, hospitality. We've got the employee wage support grants that have been given. Look at tax payments. There's VAT now. The next quarter's VAT isn't going to be collected. That's been absolutely stated by government. So you know that you're going to have that cash in your business. There's alternative funding sources you can get, of course, whether you can talk to get rent or mortgage support with your landlords or your mortgage companies as well. You can talk to your bank about lending. There's some special hospitality and leisure rates grants that's available. And there's a business interruption loan as well, which is the guarantee for the government through the British Business Bank. So there's quite a few options in that PDF that's on there. There's a lot more detail around it, and I'd urge you to look at that. But this check sheet allows you to go through and update whether that's an option for you, whether you've managed to complete it, and whether you've updated your cash flow forecast to do it. So just moving on to the cash flow forecast, there's a tab here which is then to put all your expenses in. So you can go through, and there's some I've put some examples in there, but you can go through and put through what your current expenses are, and there's quite a list you can put through there. What you want to do, and I would suggest you do it, it's going to take some time, but you need to go line by line and look at what your costs currently are, what costs you can reduce, and put the current costs in there. What would those costs be if you were shut down, or if you are shut down currently, and what those costs could be if is post shutdown as well. Now you've got to bear in mind a lot of this stuff that government's going to do is only going to delay payments. So therefore, the payment after it could be a bigger impact your business. So it's very important you start considering some of those things as part of your cash flow forecast. So that's dealing with costs. I've done a similar one then for sales, and once it catches up. So you can put in there all your customers down in the side here. You can put out what the likely sales forecast is going to be for month by month by month, and therefore we'll kind of give you some good data in there. And then finally, you can bring it all together into the cash flow forecast. So if you put into your bank balance and put your opening balance into this cell here, the whole of this all self-populates. You can bring forward your sales. If you do your sales forecast net of VAT, it will automatically add the VAT on and give you your total sales. Any other money in you've got coming in, so for instance, you've got some grants coming in, you can enter it into those. And then money out, so cost of sales, which you take for your profit and loss, will give you your gross profit. You can add in your overhead, which is going to come from your cost expense calculator, which will give you a net profit, and then you can put any director's loans, VAT payments, etc., which will give you your total money out, and then a closing balance, which will carry forward to the next month. So that allows you to do a cash flow forecast. I apologize if I'm teaching you how to suck eggs. I'm sure many of you know how to do it. But if you need any help at all, obviously just reach out and I'll take you through it in more detail. But it gives you something to do, an instant kind of financial forecast on your business, and hopefully alleviate some pain of you lying awake at night going, how on earth I'm going to cope with the next few months and paying bills and stuff. So moving back to that's the short-term actions. Now moving on to midterm, and I want to hand over to Richard now and talk about kind of how you can start adapting your mindset and start thinking a bit differently. So I'm going to bring you in, Richard, hopefully, and if I disappear my...
Hi everybody, Richard Jackson. I've introduced myself. I've worked around the world with multi-billion pound companies, middle-sized companies, but I always prefer working with one-man bands or small companies. You can make a difference tomorrow. Adrian mentioned earlier on vision, purpose, value, and I'm sure you've got all those nailed, but I've said to lots of people, do you think it's a good idea to set goals? And they say, yes, of course. Okay, next question is, if I ask you to make a list of your 5 most important values and then give them some kind of priority, would you find it easily to do? And 98% of people can't. My response to which is, how can you set goals if you don't know what your values are? So I'm assuming that all of you, small, medium, large, one-man bands, have your own vision, values, and purpose. It's so important to have a purpose. Purpose carries you through when times are like they are at the moment, and your purpose might need to change. So just to give you some background on the way we think, and all this stuff is researched, it's approved by neuroscientists. I'm not a lover of fluffy pink person development and you need to be positive all the time. In fact, the word positive is vastly misused in our country. Out of the 19 countries we worked in, we're possibly the most negative, which might not surprise you. And Edward de Bono, the thinking guru, said, to most British people, being positive is having your foot trapped under the wheel of a car and thinking, oh, well, at least it's a nice day, it's not raining, I'll probably have it out by lunchtime, instead of thinking, when am I going to get my effing foot out from under this wheel? So I'm not interested in positive thinking. I'm interested in effective thinking, directional thinking, conscious thinking. And coming to something else, almost a quote that's as famous as the Charles Darwin one is the one by Einstein, which said the definition of insanity is expecting life to get better while still doing the same things day after day after day. And we can't do the same things day after day after day. Everything's changed. We need to adapt. We need to have different thoughts. And here's a quick model, but it's not going to be on paper on a slide. The thoughts we have drive the emotions we feel. The result of that is our behavior. Repeated behavior turns into habit, and the habits I've practiced in the many years I've been on this planet have led me to the circumstance I'm in. So isn't it great that all those people watching this are sitting there with the sum total of all our past thoughts? I just hope you're pleased with them. Now you might say, oh, but stuff happens that you can't choose. Yes, this whole situation is what we call a lighthouse, something you can't change. But what you can do is respond to it. Either I'm panicking, I'm feeling really worried, and could I just say now that worry is one of the most wasteful and dangerous emotions you can have. There is no benefit in worry whatsoever, none at all. It can produce an overload of adrenaline, which attacks your major organs. And here's another fact, I'll just keep reading these out. The brain, when it's in a negative state, cannot be resourceful. So worry just closes the brain down, and you can't be innovative and creative as we really need to be in this situation. And here's a question for you to ponder on for a moment. What you think about isn't nearly as important as the way you think about what you think about. Now, I'm not Donald Rumsfeld, so Let's take the word change, and we've got a lot of that coming up at the moment. Is it true that when some people hear the word change, particularly with what's happening in the current climate, they start worrying, they get nervous and feel a bit unsure? Well, if that's what you want, keep having those thoughts. The way we think about what's happening is more important than what we think about. So my question to you is, how often do you challenge the way you're thinking? Expecting success, whilst knowing it's never going to happen all the time, but expecting success means that your brain's in an expectant state, looking for opportunities. And having worked with a group of year 11 kids, and year 11 is GCSE year, we had 10 1-hour sessions with them, 10 weeks with 1 hour time. And on the first week, I said, put your hand up if you're confident, if you're worried about your exams coming up. And every hand went up, or almost every hand went up. On week 10, I said, you start your GCSEs next week. And I had to have a whole packet of ideas and stuff during the 10 weeks. And every hand went up when I said, are you expecting to do well? And they went from 27th to 3rd in the league tables in GCE that year. And the only thing that changed was their mindset, not what they knew, which means, to quote another one, which I'm sure you may have heard, in fact, it was Einstein, imagination is more powerful than knowledge. So what are you thinking about? What kind of imagined future have you got flying around in your head? Is it, okay, this ain't great, I don't have to like it, but it's here. Now what am I going to do about it? What different things can we do? What innovations can we bring to market? And having worked for the company for the last 8 years, when I first started, they're in print distribution of magazines and stuff like that. They put them on supermarket shelves. And their dominant thought was, we're in a declining industry because everything's been digitalized. Well, you can't stop the march of digitization. But I did say, change your thoughts to, we're in a flourishing business. We're always finding new ideas. Now, I'm not into fridge magnet talk. That sounds crazy. And I've only got a few minutes to put over what we normally run the 3-day course. In the last 8 years, the business has flourished. No, print hasn't been flourishing, but they've gone into different markets. They've taken over their large competitor. Instead of having thoughts such as, we don't want to fail, they had thoughts of, we're going to succeed. Let me repeat, expecting to succeed doesn't guarantee anything, but it does make the brain more resourceful, more innovative. And Adrian mentioned the why. Well, I'm sure we all know why. It's probably an American thing, which is what you want out of life. Well, another one of these sayings is, if you've got a big enough why, the how becomes easy. Most people set SMART goals, and the R in SMART is realistic. Don't set realistic goals. High achievers don't set realistic goals. They set believable goals. If you set realistic goals, you limit yourself, because they're the ones your brain probably already knows how to achieve. Believable goals are, I'm going to get through this. Yes, it's going to be tough. And yes, are there going to be people fall by the wayside? Inevitably. I'm not saying that the great thinkers won't fall by the wayside. In this kind of situation, there's no guarantees. But what I will guarantee you is, if you start to change the way you think, and the expression, what got you here won't get you there, is so applicable at the moment. So the thoughts that got us into this situation, I don't think we caused the coronavirus, but the thought that's got us where our business is at the moment cannot be the same thoughts to help us to thrive through this next bit. And another quote, and I'm just giving you end-to-end quotes here, in every adversity, there's a seed of an equal or greater benefit. Now, is that going to apply to everybody? No. I just wonder if there's some seeds of benefit that we don't spot because we don't think they're there. You've got a bit of kit in your brain called the reticular activating system, which when you buy or decide to buy a red car, you see red cars everywhere. You see a new word, you see that everywhere. And it filters the information coming in and proves you're right. The neuroscientist term is confirmation bias. So what your brain is trying to do is to prove you're right. It takes the data in that accords with your current belief, and then it goes looking for ways to prove you're right. So if you think life's a bitch and then you're right, you're absolutely right. Or forgive me, if life's a bitch and then you die, you're absolutely right. If you think life can be a bitch sometimes, but it's pretty good most of the time, you'll be proved right there. So please remember, your brain filters information in a way that has your beliefs confirmed. If you don't believe the future is going to be, over time, one that you're really looking forward to, will thrive in, have a great time with your family, a great time with your kids, if you've got any, whatever, then please concentrate on thoughts that get you where you want to go, not where you don't. The brain can't hear the word don't. If you don't want to put the ball in the water if you're a golfer, the ball goes in the water. I don't want to forget names. Your brain starts to forget names. So I'm going to conclude this because I know you're all busy people, need to be getting on, flourishing and thriving. I'm going to leave it with this. You attract what you think about most of the time. So could I ask you, please, for you to think more consciously, think about the way you think and have a brilliant life. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Adrian.
Brilliant, Richard. Thank you very much. There's some great insight there. And how can they get some more content from yourself from this, Richard? What's your web address?
Sorry, say again. Forgive me.
Your web address?
My web address is richard@winningedgemindset.com.
Excellent. Brilliant. I'll put a link on that.
The website is winningedgemindset.com.
Winning Edge Mindset, great stuff. Okay, I'll put a link on to everything when we do all this, and it's a great link into next, which is really about and it's a great link from what Richard's done, really, from starting to think about and look at things differently, and really that shift from that short term to midterm. Short term is about that practical and using your practical mindset. And then that second part of it into this midterm is now the opportunity and starting to tap into that entrepreneur mindset you have. And absolutely what Richard has been said about, if you start looking at it differently, thinking about it differently, you'll see the opportunity. The opportunities will start smacking you around the head like you won't believe with that change of mindset. And what you want to think about, and I'm going to leave you with these kind of four things, really. One is what are your customer needs going to be? Obviously, at the moment, your customer needs are very different going forward. They will be very different going forward than they were previously. There are going to be different demands your customer's going to want in a changed environment from themselves. So start talking to your customers. Start finding out from your customers what they believe is going to be changed when we come out the other side of this. How are their businesses going to be different? How can you then respond to that? How are your competitors going to be different? Which your competitors to provide? What are the opportunities that are going to come out of that? How is your industry going to be different as well? How can you respond for that? And it's all really about this kind of last bit. It's about using that time really wisely, because what I want you to do is when business starts picking up the other side of it, you can accelerate out of those blocks like you couldn't believe, because you've done all the prep work and you've used that time wisely through the whole process to really think through what it is you can do a lot better, and you can reset and reinvent your business. So that's my kind of big mid opportunities, mid-term stuff for you. So we're going backwards now. So next steps, really. So there's the next steps for you is three stage, really. There's the short-term actions what we talked about, the stuff that Melanie's talked about managing your people, the financial forecast that I've given you, the cash flow forecast that you can use, and then start tapping into that different mindset. There's some great more resources that Richard can give you around that as well. And then start thinking about how your customers are going to be different, how you can respond to that. The next part then is really just touch on Survive and Thrive. We're going to be launching a one-to-one program. We're launching that this week, where I'm going to start helping business owners, helping you guys on a one-to-one basis about how, one, you can put those short-term measures in place, and then secondly, going to help you to really thrive. We're also going to launch some accountability and support groups. They are going to be kind of 6 to 8 people. They're going to be very, very focused. I use them elsewhere in work that I do. They're really, really effective. And what we tend to do is each week we will pick out a business and we'll get the business owner to talk about their challenges in that business. It's a very, very safe environment, so you can be very honest and frank, and you'll get the support of another 5 to 8 people that are going to help you, 5 to 7 people that are going to help you and give you some really good feedback about your business and what are the ways that you could do that as well. It's really, really effective. I'm going to hold you accountable as well to getting stuff done as well. We're going to hold your feet to the fire, as they say, to do it. So I'm going to launch some more information about that later today and through the week. And anybody that wants to come on that, just reach out and we'll do that. I don't think there's any more questions. I haven't seen any more come up on the side here. There's also my book, How to Fall Back in Love with Your Business, The Entrepreneur's Guide to Rediscovering Your Mojo and Enjoying Every Day by Living Your Dream. There's a free copy of that you can get from the Better Never Stops website. You can download it as a ebook, or we can post out a free copy or a paperback copy as well. And then next week, we'll probably do another version of this Survive and Thrive as well, because I'm sure the environment will have changed again by next week. So that's kind of it for me. A massive thank you from, if I bring them back in, they can, hopefully if I do this, we can get everybody back up. So really big thank you, Melanie, for your impact this week. It's been really, really great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been really interesting.
And thank you, Richard, as well, for your great pearls of wisdom, as always.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody else. Say if you need to reach out to us, it's adrian.peck@peckuk.com. And if you need to speak to Richard and Melanie, I'll put their details on the comments bar as well, and upload it to the website as well, so you can reach out to those guys. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.